Lastly, we want to go to Diane, who not only has a voice as someone who is a psychiatrist, but also who has a voice of someone who has battled her own mental illness. Let's welcome Diane.
I am here to give voice to the children, teenagers, and adults who have died by suicide or right now are attempting suicide even as I speak. I am here to break the silence and end stigma by sharing my story. I am here because hope is real and change is possible. Empathic relationship is the healing matrix, and time spent on this, like our time together now, is never wasted. I'm here on behalf of all those who have suffered in shame because they were taught that perfection in someone else's eyes is what matters most, and to be yourself is a crime worthy of death. My mother first named me Sarah, but she felt Sarah sounded too much like the Yiddish word surus, or grief, and because I was sick and remained in the hospital after my birth, I instead became Diane, named after her only childhood doll. Days later, the hospital nurse cried out to my father, "Get that baby out of here, take her home." She feared my life was at risk in the hospital due to neglect. My father took me home. My mother had stopped visiting me as she thought I would die. I have often fantasized that this nurse was my fairy godmother. I was sexually assaulted, sodomized as a young child by some older children who lived down the block. My father was a bully at home and in our neighborhood. My much older sister and brother were both valedictorian of their high school classes. This, unfortunately for me, led to my feeling insecure, inadequate, and jealous. I wanted to be them, not me. I found the love letter my father had written to his mistress when I was a teenager. When I graduated high school, a well-intentioned teacher wished me well, but then called me by my sister's name. I appeared to be outwardly normal and a success, despite experiencing anxiety, depression, and episodes of what I later learned was hypomania. I attempted suicide in medical school. Looking back, I was probably having a bipolar II mixed episode. Alone in my dorm room, I took an overdose of aminophylline, which is an asthma medication. I knew it could kill me, and that's what I wanted. I had boyfriend problems, but I was also living a lie, trying to be someone else so I could be loved. But instead of dying, I started to vomit blood and ended up in the emergency room, NG tube, charcoal, medically admitted psychiatric consult. The psychiatrist asked if I wanted to be in the psych unit. Shocked back into, I am a medical student, this can't be happening to me, I said no. How could I ever be a psychiatrist if anyone ever knew I tried to kill myself, and even worse than that, was admitted to a psychiatric hospital? My no was meant as a shield, but it made me even more isolated, my emotional turmoil a secret, with no one present to listen. Did you know that the suicide rate in doctors is the highest of any profession? That one doctor every day ends their life by suicide? And that the suicide rate of doctors is more than twice the general population? Even within the medical community, there is stigma against mental illness. 20 years later, my father asked for my forgiveness. He said, when I was hospitalized, he spoke these words to me. The next time you want to kill yourself, Diane, tell me, and I will tell you the right way to do it. I have no memory of his telling me this, but I do recall his dangling the check high above my head while driving me to doctor's appointments, so I would have to reach up and grab it. My father's cruel way of repeatedly humiliating me for receiving mental health treatment after the hospital discharge. My mother used to tell me, your father does not know how to love. Did he believe we were created to be the cure he could not find in himself? Was that the source of his need to have total control? The perfection in his eyes only? The my way or the highway? The silent treatment? My watching him beat my brother with a hairbrush for repeatedly dropping it, not knowing my brother had epilepsy? His demanding we all become doctors when he could not meet that dream in his own life? Are we meant to remain frozen victims within another story? Renowned psychoanalyst and psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung has said, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of their parents. My father was a product of his time. His addiction to dexedrine and amphetamine began at my birth. Strangely, I was part of the reason why. With my being so sick at birth, my mother became depressed, and the doctor gave her dexedrine. She did not like it. My father tried it and liked it. He was self-medicating his depression. My being a sensitive child opened my heart to the pain in others. Having been silenced during my growing up, I was inspired to claim my own voice, to release and express it, and to help others set themselves free creatively. I was on a life journey to become an arts and healing psychiatrist, but I did not yet know this. What can sustain and nourish us as we travel life's journey? I have learned that taking care of myself is not being selfish. For if my well-being has not been filled, I have but little to offer myself and others. Therapy, medication, friendship, sharing life's laughter, joy, and tears with others, knowing, really knowing, that asking for help is strength, not weakness. Offering help is compassion and not a power trip. To be emotionally well is knowing I was born to live and that I have a purpose, even when no one tells me, not my family, my friends, my society, and even when I've turned my own self against myself. This I know to be true. There is a self greater than myself who wants me to live, and even more importantly, knows I can live even more strongly, more bravely, and more amazingly than I have ever done before. To rekindle and restore the wellness of our inner self is a lifelong process of restoring ourselves. Many people have suffered the darkness of depression and emerged whole and into the light. Rebirth from ashes is the phoenix bird flying. May we all be empowered to break the silence and end stigma by sharing our mental health stories with our heads held high. For in the timeless words of Rabbi Hillel, if I am not for myself, who will be? But if I am only for myself, who am I? And if not now, when? The greatest gift of all is to be seen and heard. Thank you.